March 15th, 44 BC. The theater of Pompeii in Rome. Julius Caesar walked into the Senate meeting, carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders, unaware that he had only minutes left to live. At 55 years old, he was the most powerful man in the known world, conqueror of Gaul, victor in a civil war, dictator of Rome. Yet that morning, his wife Calpurnia had begged him not to go. She dreamed of his statue spouting blood, of him dying in her arms. A soothsayer had warned him to beware the Ides of March. Even the augurs declared the omens unfavorable. But Caesar went anyway, because to show fear would be to show weakness, and weakness was something Rome's strongest man could never afford to display. This decision, this fatal mixture of pride and political necessity, would cost him everything. Because waiting for him in that Senate chamber weren't just legislators, they were conspirators. 60 senators had sworn an oath to kill him, and leading them were men Caesar had called friends. Brutus, whom he'd loved like a son, and Cassius, whom he'd trusted with military command. The irony was brutal. Caesar had spent his entire life battling external enemies, Gallic tribes, Germanic warriors, Egyptian queens, Roman rivals. And he had defeated them all. But he never saw the threat growing within his own circle, hidden behind smiles and senatorial togas. Caesar's vulnerability that day was the culmination of a problem that had been building for years. He had become too successful, too powerful, too popular with the common people. The Roman Republic was built on a careful balance of power: 2 consuls, a senate, tribunes, all checking each other's ambition. No single man was supposed to dominate, but Caesar had shattered that balance. His conquest of Gaul had made him fantastically wealthy and given him a battle-hardened army loyal to him personally. His crossing of the Rubicon and subsequent civil war had eliminated his political rivals. His reforms, giving land to veterans, extending citizenship, reforming the calendar, had made him beloved by the masses but feared by the aristocracy. When he accepted the title of Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life, in February 44 BC, he essentially declared the republic dead. The senators who plotted against him genuinely believed they were saving Rome from tyranny. They called themselves the Liberators. They saw Caesar as a king in all but name, and Romans had sworn never to bow to monarchy again after expelling their last king 5 centuries earlier. But their solution, assassination, would prove far more destructive than the problem they sought to solve. The story of how Caesar reached this fatal moment begins decades earlier, with a decision that would define his life. In 60 BC, Caesar formed the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus, an informal alliance that allowed them to bypass traditional republican politics. It was political genius and constitutional vandalism simultaneously. By pooling their resources and influence, they could control Rome's government without holding official positions that would make them obvious targets. This taught Caesar a crucial lesson. The old republican system was broken. It couldn't handle Rome's transformation from Italian city-state to Mediterranean empire. The traditional aristocracy was corrupt, self-serving, and incompetent. If Rome was to survive, someone needed to take control. Caesar decided that someone would be him. What followed was one of history's most remarkable military and political careers. Caesar conquered Gaul in campaigns that mixed brilliant strategy with ruthless brutality. He crossed the Rhine into Germania, invaded Britain twice, and defeated Gallic coalitions that outnumbered his legions. He wrote commentaries on his wars that are still read today, propaganda disguised as military history, making himself the hero of every victory. When the Senate ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome to face charges, Caesar made his legendary gamble. In January 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River with his 13th legion, uttering "Ilea jacta est," the die is cast. It was illegal for a general to bring troops into Italy. By crossing that small river, Caesar triggered civil war. The war proved his strategic genius. He defeated Pompey's superior forces through speed, audacity, and political maneuvering. At Pharsalus in Greece, he crushed Pompey's army despite being outnumbered 2-1. When Pompey fled to Egypt, Caesar followed and found himself embroiled in Egyptian politics, where he met Cleopatra and helped secure her throne. Victory followed victory. He defeated Pompey's sons in Spain, crushed opposition in Africa, reformed Rome's calendar, initiated massive building projects, and planned campaigns to conquer Parthia. He seemed unstoppable, a military genius who had never lost a war. Then came the Ides of March. As Caesar entered the theater of Pompeii, the conspirators surrounded him under pretense of presenting a petition. One grabbed his toga from behind, the signal. Then the daggers came out. The attack was frenzied, desperate, bloody. 23 stab wounds. The conspirators stabbed each other in their panic. Caesar fought initially, but when he saw Brutus, his protege, possibly his illegitimate son, among the attackers, the ancient sources say he pulled his toga over his face and stopped resisting. His last words, contrary to Shakespeare, were probably Greek. Kai su teknon, to you, child. He collapsed at the base of Pompey's statue, the man he'd defeated now bearing silent witness to his murder. The greatest general Rome had ever produced died not on a battlefield facing enemies, but on a Senate floor stabbed by friends. The conspirators expected Romans to celebrate liberation from tyranny. Instead, the city erupted in riots. The common people who had loved Caesar were outraged. The assassination accomplished nothing the conspirators intended. Instead of saving the Republic, they destroyed it completely. Mark Antony and Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, hunted down the assassins. A second civil war erupted. Brutus and Cassius died at Philippi. Within 15 years, Octavian became Augustus, Rome's first emperor, establishing a monarchy that would last 5 centuries. Caesar's death proved that Rome had outgrown its republican system. The Republic's institutions couldn't manage an empire stretching from Britain to Egypt. One-year consulships and balanced power structures couldn't provide the stable, long-term leadership necessary. Caesar saw this truth. His mistake was moving too fast, alarming the old guard before creating institutional supports for his reforms. The lesson echoes through history. Change, however necessary, creates enemies among those who benefit from the status quo. Caesar's brilliance couldn't save him from the resentment his success generated. He conquered Gaul, defeated Pompey, reformed Rome's government, and died because he underestimated how much the old aristocracy feared his power. Was Caesar a visionary reformer whose murder doomed the republic he might have saved? Or an ambitious tyrant whose assassination came too late to prevent Rome's slide into autocracy? Were the conspirators heroes defending liberty, or short-sighted murderers who created the very tyranny they feared? And what does Caesar's fate teach us about power, reform, and the dangerous space between what is and what might be? Share your perspective below. If this story of ambition, betrayal, and the thin line between savior and tyrant resonated with you, hit like and subscribe for more tales of historical moments that changed everything. Because Caesar's echo reminds us that those who reshape the world often don't survive to see what they've created. And sometimes the greatest danger comes not from enemies, but from friends who fear your success.